there, my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the top 10 series that I want to continue in 2022. But before we go ahead and get on into the series, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new bookish content. I post new videos every Monday, Thursday, Saturday, and sometimes other days throughout the week. Also, don't forget to check down in the description box below for links to all of my social media, my Buddy Read Discord, and my Patreon. So these are all series, for the most part, that I started in 2021. I started a lot of new series, and it's kind of embarrassing, and they're all series that I do want to continue with, and these are in no particular order. But I'm going to start off with The Expanse by James S. A. Corey. This is actually a series that I did not start in 2021, and I wanted to continue and read book 3 last year, and I even had it on my TBR at some point and just never got around to it. I've only read the first 2 books, and every time I look at my shelf, I'm like, I really need to continue The Expanse because I really am sucked into the story, and it's really good. My library has the audiobooks, and it's one of the few space operas, if the only space opera, that I've ever read. I have heard that this book is rather sloggy, but it does pick up in like the next couple installments, so it's one that I just want to get through so I can continue on with the series. The next is Ravencry by Ed McDonald. This is book 2 in the Ravenmark series. I read Blackwing last year and absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite books of 2021. It is an adult fantasy grimdark series that follows a bounty hunter and this world that is keeping these like invading magical beings known as the Deep Kings at bay by this giant engine that uses energy gleaned from moonlight. And it's just wild. Like, it's a first-person narrative. It's dark. It's gritty. The characters, despite how short these books were, are extremely well developed, especially our protagonist, which I was not expecting, which is why Blackwing was one of my favorite books of last year. So definitely one that I want to continue because there is a 3rd book in the series that I want to also eventually read. So another priority for 2022. The next series is The Faithful and the Fallen Quartet by John Gwynne. I am in the middle of this. I read Malice, I started Valor, I got halfway through and I put it down because I was extremely bored, and I have been really having trouble picking it back up. Like, every time I think about picking up The Faithful and the Fallen, I'm like, there's so many other books I'd rather read. Not that this was bad by any shape of the imagination, it's not. It just was not gripping me as much as other books I was reading at the time. But I have his other spin-off series, and I have Shadow of the Gods, so I do want to read all of his books. You guys just need to give me some motivation in the comments to finally finish Valor so I can move on. The next series is the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, Era 2. I need to read The Bands of Mourning, and I really like these books because compared to like his other Mistborn, like the first era Mistborn, they are so much more action-packed. They are so much quicker to get through. The world building has already been established. Sanderson just kind of adds onto it with different things that our characters can do within the confines of his magic system. You know, we don't have to have this whole antagonist set up and all of this lore and backstory created because it's already been done in the first era. So these books are just more fun and quicker to get through, and I usually audiobook these and really enjoy the audiobook narrator. The Lost Metal, I think, is the name of it. I think that comes out this year towards the end of 2022, so I'd like to be caught up before that final book comes out. Next, we have Bridge of Souls by Victoria Schwab. This is a middle grade ghost hunter series. This is book 3 in the Cassidy Blake series. I usually like to read these books around October, like the Halloweeny season, because they're creepy, they're atmospheric, they're about ghosts. And every single book so far has taken place in like a different part of the world, and I'm pretty sure this one takes place in New Orleans. But like I said, Cassidy Blake is a ghost hunter. She got this ability by having a near-death experience, and ever since then she has been able to see ghosts and step through the veil between the world of the living and dead. Her best friend is a ghost, and he helps her to find malevolent ghosts and release them into the afterlife. And like I said, they're just cute, fun ghost adventures, and one I will pick up around the fall season. Next is the Daevabad trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. I need to continue with Kingdom of Copper. I read the first book, City of Brass, and really liked it. It's not one of my favorites of all time, but it definitely interested me enough to continue the series. And it is a desert-inspired fantasy. We have a main character that enters this world called Daevabad, which has all of these magical abilities. She enlists the help of a djinn who has a backstory, not so good backstory with the people of Daevabad, and I found that our author just was so good at painting this rich, beautiful, magical world, and hopefully there's a good romance between our characters because they had a lot of good chemistry. This is a series that I want to continue, but kind of like Faithful and the Fallen, every time I look at it on my shelf, I think, gosh, there's other books that I'd rather read other than this. So I feel like this I'll have to pick up when I'm in the mood for like a good, rich, atmospheric desert fantasy. The next book is The Arm of the Sphinx, which is the second book in the Books of Babel quartet by Josiah Bancroft. Book 4 just came out at the end of last year, so I have the entire quartet now, and I do not know why I have not picked this book up yet, because Senlin Ascends I absolutely loved, and it's set up for such an awesome continuation of the series, and every time I look at my shelf, I say I want to read this, and then I don't. There's just not enough time to read all the books. So this follows a world that's very similar to our own, but it's not our own. There is this Tower of Babel that people flock to for like vacations and things like that. Our main character, Thomas Senlin, goes with his new wife, and his wife goes missing while at the Tower of Babel. So he has to do everything he can to get her back, find out what's going on, and he actually has to go through a lot of different trials and tests and experiences in order to go through each level of the tower, and we learn more about the tower and maybe some sinister things that are going on with it as Senlin ascends the ladder or the levels. So definitely a series I'm excited to continue. Then we have the Levelers trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. This is the standalone book trilogy in his first Law World. I read Best Served Cold a couple months ago and of course really liked it, and the next book is The Heroes. A lot of people I've heard said that this is like their favorite of the three, or some I've even heard say this is their favorite book of all time, so I don't know what to expect. I don't know if it's going to carry over from what we learned in Best Served Cold, or if Abercrombie was just like establishing like a point in the plot in his world that this will continue on with different characters. I'm really not sure, but we all know that Abercrombie's dark and gritty and writes awesome characters, so I'm really excited actually to continue with this trilogy as well. And then we have With Blood Upon the Sand by Bradley Belier. This is book 2 in his The Song of the Shattered Sand series. I actually really liked 12 Kings and Sherakai more than I was expecting, and I feel like our author just created an awesome world with a lot of mystery surrounding these 12 kings and just things about this world that weren't really explained, but like the author gave hints that it was going to be expanded upon. The magic in this world wasn't really that prevalent, but it's another thing that I think will be expanded upon in further books. Our main character is Seda, and we learned way more about her and her backstory and how she's important to these 12 kings in the first book, and she kind of had to do something in order to avenge her mother's death in the first book, and that's kind of where we are set up in book 2. This series is another one I plan on prioritizing this year because I do want to get caught up, and I'm very excited because I really enjoyed 12 Kings and Sherakai. And finally, we have The Fall of Hyperion, which is book 2 in the Hyperion Cantos by Dan Simmons. I absolutely loved Hyperion. It was one of my favorite books of 2021, and I want to continue the story. I want to know what happens to our travelers now that they arrived at Hyperion. I want to see how all of their lives are intertwined and exactly what happens with these time tombs, exactly what happens with Hyperion. I think that this is a more like sci-fi action-packed installment, where the first book was more of a setup and development of the world and characters. So I think that the story will go off with a bang. This is another one that I had wanted to get to in 2021 and had on my TBR and just didn't have time to get to it. So your girl does plan on prioritizing this series as well sometime this year. Alright you guys, that is it for the 10 series that I want to continue in 2022. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these and what you thought of them. Also some series that you're in the middle of, and I will see y'all in another video soon. Goodbye!